Good morning, I'm Keval Datani.
I'm Natasha Riga-Jones.
I'm Mia Dowdy, and welcome to Warwick Congress Weekly.
This week we'll be talking about the ongoing tensions in the Middle East, Donald Trump's tax bill, and Michael Flynn's guilty plea.
We'll have a selection of the financial news of the week, and then the latest on Brexit negotiations, and we'll look at Mnangagwa's new cabinet.
We'll talk about Japan's emperor abdicating his throne, slobbered on Praljac's courtroom suicide, the unfolding corruption scandal in Venezuela, and we'll announce our Christmas competition for Warwick Congress 2018, so stay tuned. But before we do that, we're going to tell you a bit about Warwick Congress, who we are, what we do, and how we do it.
Warwick Congress is one of the fastest growing student-run initiatives in the UK that aims to unite the disciplines of finance, economics, politics and law into one single platform.
We'll host events throughout the year, culminating in our conference in February. We also aim to provide students with various networking opportunities, such as our external networking event that took place on November 3rd, as well as career seminars.
Membership of Warwick Congress is free, so sign up on our website at www.warwickcongress.com. Our hope is that Warwick Congress Weekly can inform our listeners, and if you have any questions, queries or opinions, then please message in and let us know. You can do so by going to www.radio.warwick.ac.uk and pressing the message tab on the top right corner. You can also tweet us at raw1251am.
Now, last week we published an article on the rising tensions in the Middle East, and all of our articles are available to our members at www.warwickcongress.com. And membership is free, so sign up now. So Mia, what's the latest?
When Italy organised a conference focused on the Middle East, the Gulf and North Africa, it promised to look beyond the turmoil roiling the region and instead promote a positive agenda. The Qatari foreign minister captured the gloom, bemoaning a lack of wisdom in the region, with no hope on hand for ordinary people hoping for an end to conflicts, such as that of Saudi Arabia and Iran, that have brought upheaval and turmoil to the region. Iran and Saudi Arabia are engaged in a regional battle for dominance, being fought by proxies in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon and other countries, a tussle which has drawn in the West. The foreign ministers of both Iran and Saudi Arabia addressed the conference, taking turns to trade barbs. The Qatari foreign minister said on Friday, "Since 1979, the Iranians have literally got away with murder in our region, and this has to stop." He also accused Tehran of interfering in the affairs of numerous Arab states, including Syria, Yemen and Lebanon.
So what has the internal response been?
The Iranian foreign minister has accused Saudi Arabia of blocking ceasefire efforts in Syria as a result of suffocating Qatar, destabilising Lebanon and supporting Islamic State. He also dismissed suggestions that Tehran was meddling in the affairs of its troubled neighbours, or that it should stop supporting militia groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon. Amidst all the talk of war and chaos, there was little mention of diplomatic efforts to restore peace to the region. Robert Malley, Vice President for Policy at the non-governmental International Crisis Group, said, "At a time when you have so many sources of tension, so many fuses, so many humanitarian catastrophes, you also have so little diplomacy."
So what about tensions in the rest of the region?
Reports have been made by Syrian news outlets claiming Israeli warplanes had struck on Iranian military base near the city of Al-Qiswa, 13 kilometres south of the Syrian capital of Damascus, on Saturday morning. Syria's air defence system fired missiles at Israeli aircraft, which reportedly launched the attack from Lebanese airspace, Sky News Arabia reported. Syrian state media has confirmed that an attack took place and claimed that 2 Israeli surface-to-surface missiles had also been intercepted by Syrian air defences. Israeli officials have declined to comment on the reports, and Israel's latest involvement in Syria has reiterated their demand for Iran to retreat from the area. The attack comes as a result of news that Iran has built a permanent military base in Syria within a compound used by the Syrian military near Al-Qiswa. The Israeli Chief of Staff, Eisenkot, has been on record to state Israel's demands are for Iran and its militias to retreat from Syria. "We have said openly, and also quietly and secretly too, that we will not accept Iranian consolidation in Syria. We will not allow any Iranian presence. We have warned them against building factories or military bases, and we will not allow it," he said. According to Israel's analysis, Tehran wishes to establish an advanced outpost in Syria, as it did previously with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israelis' moves are meant to at least deny the possibility of an Iranian presence in southern Syria, and reduce the chances of establishing bases and a port in northern Syria. For our next story, we take a look at Trump's tax bill.
On Saturday, President Trump achieved his first major legislative victory in the Senate after senators voted through his tax overhaul, the largest since the 1980s under President Reagan. The bill was passed by 51 senators against 49, and Trump called it one of the big nights and thanked Republican senators for delivering massive tax cuts for working families. The bill consists of a $1.5 billion cut to the tax bill, a large cut to corporation tax to 20% from 35%, and future foreign profits of US-based firms will largely be exempt from tax. Individual temporary tax cuts are also part of the bill. Most Republicans were joyous as a result of the decision, with Republican Majority Leader Mitch McConnell calling the passing of the bill just what the country needs to get growing again. Add-ons to the bill proved another reason for Republicans to be happy, as it met many Republican goals, such as the opening of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge for oil drilling and the start, as they see it, of the attack on Obamacare. However, the bill has been viciously attacked by many. It's been said that this bill will only benefit the wealthy, corporations and lobbyists, whilst hurting working classes and the middle-class Americans. The New York Times dubbed it as the looting of the public purse by corporations and the wealthy. Even the Senate Joint Committee on Thursday warned that the bill would make a huge hit on the Treasury, adding around $1 trillion onto the US deficit. Strangely, Republicans, who have always been based on fiscal conservatism, ignored these warnings and passed the bill with only one dissenting Republican senator. More criticism was centered around the passing of the bill, since Democrat senators complained that they did not have enough time to look over the entirety of it after the bill was passed in the early hours of Saturday morning, with many late amendments being scrawled onto it. In addition, the Democrats only managed to see these amendments from pictures by lobbyists who saw the bill before them. This has only added to the criticism that the bill is in favour of lobbyists. Trump, in his statement, said he hoped the bill would be signed before Christmas and stated that the people are going to be very, very happy with the bill. Staying on the subject of President Trump, Michael Flynn, former National Security Advisor, also hit headlines last week.
Robert Mueller's investigation into the Trump administration ties with Russia heated up on Friday when Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. Flynn served for less than a month as National Security Advisor and was fired by Trump in mid-February after officials said that he had misled Vice President Mike Pence and other officials about his phone discussions with the then Russian ambassador to the United States, Sergei Kislyak. After Mr. Trump's election, Kislyak spoke by phone several times with Flynn in late December and discussed sanctions put in place by the Obama administration. The calls were monitored by US intelligence agencies, and days after Trump took office in January, Flynn was interviewed by FBI agents about those talks. Under a plea bargain deal, Flynn has now admitted that he willfully and knowingly made materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statements to the FBI about his conversations with Kislyak, and has agreed to cooperate with prosecutors delving into the actions of Trump's inner circle before he took office. Prosecutors alleged that the two men discussed US sanctions against Russia and that Flynn also asked Kislyak to help delay a United Nations vote seen as damaging to Israel. Prosecutors have also said that a very senior member of Trump's transition team told Flynn to contact Russia and other foreign governments to try to influence them ahead of the UN vote. This dramatic turn of events also raises questions about whether Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, had a role in those Russia contacts. Kushner's lawyer, Abe Lowell, has stated that his client has voluntarily cooperated with all relevant inquiries and will continue to do so.
So what does this mean for Trump?
Well, the odds of Trump becoming the third US president to be impeached have been cut after this revelation. Betfair now places the chance of Trump being impeached at 59%, with Naomi Totten, spokeswoman for Betfair, saying, "Punters are increasingly confident that this is one mess Trump will not be able to tweet his way out of." Meanwhile, Paddy Power put the odds of a Trump impeachment at 63%. However, there was nothing in the court hearing that pointed to any evidence against Trump, with the White House having said that Flynn's guilty plea implicated Flynn and Flynn alone. Despite this, on Saturday, Trump tweeted that he had to fire Flynn because he lied to the Vice President and the FBI, implying that he had prior knowledge of Flynn breaking the law before Friday's revelations. As a result, Walter Schaub, the former director of the US Office of Government Ethics, has said that Trump's tweet could amount to obstruction of justice. However, it has since come to light that the tweet was actually written by John Dowd, the president's chief lawyer, thus putting some distance between Trump and the tweet's contents. This looked like a huge story which isn't going to go away anytime soon, so as usual, we'll keep you updated as this story develops, as well as within this week's article. Now for the financial news of the week.
As Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau visits China, trade will be high on the agenda in a bid to boost business ties between Canada and the world's second largest economy. Canada has previously explored opening full-blown free trade talks with China, and Trudeau's trip comes as he wrestles with trade pacts in North America and with other partners in Asia. Greece and its Eurozone creditors have reached a preliminary agreement on the reforms Athens needs to roll out, paving the way for the disbursement of around 5 billion euros in funds next month, and the country leaving its bailout programme in August 2018. The deal covers fiscal issues, energy, and labour market reforms, as well as bad loans and privatisations. Lyft saw an explosion of sales growth in the first half of the year. Revenue is estimated to have tripled from the same period a year ago, to $483 million, whilst Lyft's net loss fell 27% to $206 million. The company's strong revenue gains come at a time when its large rival Uber struggles with a series of scandals and setbacks. Facebook has opened its new London office, stating it would add 800 more jobs in the capital next year. The location will be Facebook's biggest engineering hub outside the US and will also house the company's first in-house startup incubator, called London Lab. 21st Century Fox has restarted talks with Disney over the sale of significant parts of the Fox empire. The negotiation centre on Fox's film studio, cable channels such as FX and international businesses including India's Star Network, and Sky, the Financial Times reported citing multiple people with knowledge of the talks, as the talks were earlier called off this month. Disney is thought to be unlikely to seek to buy Fox's sport programming assets for fear of running foul of antitrust laws, given its ownership of the ESPN sports network, and would also not buy Fox News or Fox's local broadcasting affiliates. Now, as we hinted at earlier in the programme, we have a very special guest with us today who is going to be announcing our competition for Christmas this year. To those of you that are joining us on Facebook Live right now, welcome. We're glad you're with us. Are we good to go on Facebook? There we go. Welcome on Facebook to Warwick Congress Weekly. I'm joined here today by Raj Shah. Raj is coordinator for this year's conference. How are you feeling, Raj?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here on the radio show. It's a pleasure to be here in person for once. I'm doing very well, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. We're very glad to have you on. So we just want to ask you, how's preparation for the conference going this year?
I think preparations are going quite well, actually. Obviously, there's a lot going on at the moment. We're all super busy, but it is very motivating to see all 12 of our teams working really hard and persevering towards our conference.
And can you tell us a bit about the structure of the conference, what it's going to look like over the weekend?
Yep, so obviously, as everyone knows, it's a conference weekend. The overarching theme is innovation. So on Friday, we'll have 2 keynote speeches just to introduce the topic of innovation before going into more detail on global trade and social media on Saturday and Sunday. We'll also have 2 panel debates, as well as our drinks receptions, and of course the launch of our brand new Grand Gala on the Saturday evening.
So it looks very, very promising. And Raj is about to tell us what you need to do at home to try and win yourself a free ticket to Warwick Congress 2018.
Yeah, precisely. So we're delighted to announce our competition. Essentially, it's quite simple. For the chance to win a free ticket to Warwick Congress, you can go either on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter, and using the hashtag WalkOn18Comp, you just need to answer the following question, which is, what do you think is the most innovative trend in the world right now and why? And then you just need to hashtag WalkOn18Comp. We'll choose the best response over the holidays, and the competition will close on Monday the 8th of January, and we'll announce the winner on our radio show in the first week of Term 2.
So there you have it. What is the most innovative trend in the world right now and why? Get on Instagram, get on Facebook, hashtag WalkOn18Comp. Thank you for joining us, Raj.
Thank you very much, and all the best for the rest of the radio show.
Cheers, thank you. Now I think it's time to move on to Theresa May's Brexit negotiations.
In an unprecedented warning, Jeremy Hunt has told Tory MPs that Brexit will not happen if the party does not back Theresa May. Speaking to ITV on Sunday, the Health Secretary said, "I think there's an even bigger point here that the choice we face now is not between this Brexit or that Brexit. If we don't back Theresa May, we will have no Brexit." The senior cabinet minister's remarks come in response to reports that pro-Leave Conservatives have issued a series of red lines to the Prime Minister as exit talks with the EU reach a critical phase. On Sunday, a series of prominent Conservatives, including Jacob Rees-Mogg, John Redwood and former Chancellor Lord Lawson, signed a letter urging May to refuse to settle the UK's divorce bill with the EU unless Brussels agrees to a series of new demands. These include settling the terms of a free trade agreement in principle by the end of March 2019 and an end to the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice and the freedom of movement to the UK for EU nationals when the UK leaves the bloc at the end of the Article 50 process. The letter states, if the EU refuses to agree to these terms by the end of the December Council, the UK should suspend its participation in the negotiations and inform the EU that, unless they are prepared to talk to us seriously about a future trade agreement, we will revert to World Trade Organization terms from March 30th, 2019. Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Vince Cable, seized on Mr Hunt's comments, adding, "It is encouraging to see a senior cabinet minister admit that the option of an exit from Brexit is still on the table."
Is a no Brexit future something that the public actually want?
Well, Cable's comments come at a time where half of Britons have signalled that they want a public vote on the UK's final Brexit deal with the EU once the government's negotiations are over, a new Survation poll suggests. Polling analyst Mike Smithson said the results of the poll represented the first time any pollster has record backing for a second Brexit referendum. The poll also saw Jeremy Corbyn extend Labour's lead over the Tories to 8 points, the largest gap in any poll for the last 5 months. Labour is now at 45%, with Theresa May and the Conservatives at 37%. If such vote shares totals were reflected at the ballot box, an 8-point lead would put the Labour Party into the overall majority territory.
So why this shift in public attitudes?
Well, May is facing growing pressure to reveal the true cost of the Brexit divorce bill, with Conservatives having said that the bill will likely be between £40 and £50 billion, though other estimates have put the potential sum higher at £55 billion or even up to £100 billion in the long term. According to Salvation's poll, only 9% of those surveyed said they would strongly approve of the UK agreeing to pay £50 billion into the EU. Conservative MP Heidi Allen said, "We need transparency. The divorce bill should be all out, warts and all. It should state that this is what the referendum is costing us in financial terms, and deal terms, and citizens' rights terms." Labour is threatening to bring the matter to a head on Wednesday by tabling an amendment to the EU withdrawal bill going through the Commons, which, if passed, would require any financial settlement to be assessed by both the Office for Budget Responsibility and the National Audit Office to ensure it is a good deal for taxpayers, as well as giving Parliament the chance to approve or reject it in a vote. Shadow Brexit Secretary Sir Keir Starmer said, "It is essential that the government is transparent at every stage of this process and Parliament is given sufficient opportunity to scrutinise the final figure." May met with European Commissioner President Jean-Claude Juncker yesterday to secure an agreement in principle on the withdrawal terms of Brexit, including the divorce bill, the Irish border and EU citizens' rights. However, the talks broke down after Arlene Foster, the Democratic Unionist Party leader, ruled out any move which separates Northern Ireland economically or politically from the rest of the United Kingdom, leading many MPs to suggest that the Prime Minister is being held to ransom by the DUP. Juncker stated that an agreement at next week's EU summit is still possible, but warned it is now getting very tight. For our next story, we head to Zimbabwe, where Mnangagwa's cabinet has received much criticism.
Zimbabwe's new president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, unveiled a new cabinet on Friday, in which 2 senior military officials, who played a central role in bringing him to power, were given key jobs. Mr. Mnangagwa was inaugurated as president last week. He took over from Robert Mugabe, who had been in power for 37 years. Moyo, the army officer who went on state TV on November the 15th to announce the military's takeover of power, has been appointed foreign minister, while Air Force Commander Perat Shiri is the new Minister of Lands, Agriculture and Rural Resettlement. The 22 members of the cabinet are all members of the ruling ZANU-PF party, dashing hopes that President Mnangagwa would appoint members of the opposition to his cabinet to form a transitional government until elections. This is against what Mnangagwa had promised in his inauguration speech last Friday, to reach out to the opposition, and he pledged sweeping reforms and a crackdown on rampant corruption. Mnangagwa also appointed 6 new deputy ministers and 10 ministers of state for provincial affairs. He is yet to appoint 2 vice presidents, which Zimbabwe's constitution allows a sitting president to do so. Minor changes to Mnangagwa's team were announced on Saturday in order to ensure compliance with the constitution.
So what's the response been in Zimbabwe?
Well, following the announcement, some Zimbabweans took to social media to vent their anger and disappointment. Up until now, we'd given the coup the benefit of the doubt. We did so in the genuine, perhaps naive view that the country would actually move forward. We craved for change, peace and stability in our country. How wrong we were, wrote Tendai Biti, Zimbabwe's former finance minister and a prominent government critic. Zimbabwean media mogul Trevor Nkube tweeted, President Mnangagwa's cabinet is very disappointing. Largely the same people that caused this crisis have been recycled. The honeymoon comes to an end and reality dawns. His concern seems to have been rewarding those who brought him to power after ZANU-PF unity. Japan has hit headlines this week after announcement that Emperor Akito will abdicate.
That's right, Emperor Akito, who's 83 years old, will abdicate in April 2019, having been on the throne since 1989. Emperor Akito addressed the nation last year, saying that he was worried that his age and declining health would make it difficult to carry out his stately duties.
So what's been the Japanese people's response to his abdication?
Most supported the emperor's desire to abdicate, with 85% of people saying that the abdication should be legalised in a survey conducted by the Kyodo news agency after Akito suggested he wanted to step down in that speech last year. And when Akito addressed the nation and expressed his concerns over his health, it was illegal for an emperor to step down. The speech was widely interpreted as a wish for abdication, and the public were generally sympathetic, and so the Japanese government moved to enact a bill this year to allow him to abdicate. It's a one-off piece of legislation, however, and does not allow his son Naruhito or his successors to abdicate, and it will be the first time in 2 centuries a Japanese emperor will abdicate the throne. We now shift our focus to international criminal law.
The Bosnian Croat war crime Slobodan Praljak has committed suicide by taking potassium cyanide. The 72-year-old drank from a vial in front of cameras and the court in The Hague's courtroom last Wednesday, immediately after it was announced that he would remain convicted for his war crimes in the 1990s. In 2013, Praljak was convicted of crimes against humanity, committed while commanding Bosnian Croat forces. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, or ICTY, found that he had firstly failed to make any serious efforts to stop his soldiers rounding up Muslims in the summer of 1993. Secondly, it was decided he had failed to act on information that murders were being planned, as well as attacks on members of international organisations, and the destruction of Mostar's historic old bridge and mosques. Last Wednesday was his final judgment in the courtroom, and the ICTY found that he and the 5 others remain convicted. He had a 20-year sentence for his war crimes committed in the 1990s. In the courtroom on Wednesday, when it was announced that his appeal had been lost, the former general declared, "Slobodan Praljak is not a war criminal. I'm rejecting the court ruling." He then drank from a small brown glass bottle and announced, "I have taken poison." The presiding judge cut short the hearing, and Praljak was taken to hospital. Officials said Praljak died shortly afterwards in a local hospital.
This surely raises some questions about the level of security then.
Well, yes. In fact, Peter Robinson, a lawyer for a convicted Bosnian Serb war criminal, said he would not understand how anyone could have passed poison to a prisoner. He said that to visit detainees, you have to go through 2 security checks, emphasising how everything is searched before you go in. Dutch authorities are investigating how he smuggled poison into the courtroom.
So what's the response been to this suicide?
Well, there's been quite split opinions across officials. The Croatian Prime Minister said his death spoke of a deep moral injustice towards 6 indicated Croats from Bosnia and the Croatian people. However, the Croatian president said on television that Croats need to admit that some of their compatriots had committed crimes in Bosnia. In Bosnia itself, Dragan Kovic, the Croat member of the tripartite presidency, said his suicide showed what sacrifice he was ready to make to show he was not a war criminal. About 1,000 Bosnian Croats gathered in Mostar Square late on Wednesday to light candles in memory of Praljak. For our last story of the week, we take a look at the corruption in Venezuela.
Amid the debt crisis that we discussed a few weeks ago, Venezuela has continued to try and solve the out-of-control situation, with the government recently beginning an anti-corruption crackdown. The Venezuelan Attorney General Tarek William Saab announced on Thursday that ex-PDVSA President Nelson Martinez and Rafael Ramirez, the former oil minister, had been arrested on corruption charges, with 65 managers of the oil industry having been arrested in total. Diego Salazar, cousin of Ramirez, was also arrested on charges of money laundering of an amount thought to be $1.6 billion through Andorran banks, with 16 other arrest warrants out for more oil officials. The Attorney General has said that these arrests are necessary to fulfill the pledge made by the government to ensure that Venezuela's oil wealth is spent on the struggling poor of the country, with Venezuela currently facing starvation due to the economic crisis. Currently, PDVSA is the biggest casualty in the debt crisis, with the company expected to default on their debts after missing bond payments last month. The move has been widely seen as a way for President Maduro to solidify his power in the wake of elections next year, having recently cracked down on anti-government protesters by resorting to the use of the military. The coming months will certainly be a rocky road, with more sanctions being placed on the country for its human rights abuses, and with Trump having even threatened military action. At the moment, Venezuela is spiralling out of control.
Here's a summary of the stories that you've heard today. Tensions between Saudi Arabia and Iran continue to escalate in the Middle East as various foreign ministries traded insults at a conference in Italy. The tensions continue to spread as Israel allegedly attacked an Iranian military base in Syria this past week, leaving the region on the brink of war. President Trump has achieved his first major legislative victory in the Senate after senators voted through his tax overhaul 51-49, the largest since the 1980s under President Reagan. The bill consists of a $1.5 billion cut to the US tax bill, a large cut in corporation tax to 20% from 35%, and individual temporary tax breaks. Michael Flynn, President Trump's former national security advisor, pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. Flynn has now admitted that he willfully and knowingly made materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statements to the FBI about his conversations with Sergei Kislyak, the Russian ambassador to the USA, and he's agreed to cooperate with prosecutors delving into the actions of Trump's inner circle before he took office.
Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt has told Conservative MPs that Brexit will not happen if the party does not back Teresa May. This news comes amidst claims that the Brexit divorce bill could rise into hundreds of billions of pounds and growing concern of the lack of agreement over the Northern Ireland border. Emerson Mnangagwa unveiled the 22 members of his cabinet, all of whom are members of the ruling ZANU-PF party, dashing hopes that Mnangagwa would appoint members of the opposition to his cabinet in order to form a transitional government until elections. 2 of the top positions went to senior military officials who were crucial in bringing him into power. Emperor Akito of Japan will abdicate his throne in April 2019 and will become the first Japanese emperor to do so in 2 centuries, citing health concerns as his reason.
Bosnian Serb war criminal Slobodan Praljak committed suicide in The Hague last Wednesday, drinking a solution of potassium cyanide in front of the cameras immediately after it was announced that he would remain convicted for his war crimes in the 1990s. The Venezuelan government began an anti-corruption crackdown recently with over 65 individuals related to state oil company PDVSA being detained. The move has been widely seen as a way for President Maduro to solidify his power in the wake of elections next year. Tickets for our conference from the 9th to the 11th of February are on sale, so buy yours now to see world-class speakers like Basil Scarsella, CEO of the UK Power Networks, Jean-Francis Mazourde, Head of Private Banking of Societe Generale, and Gavin Hewitt, BAFTA and Emmy Award-winning BBC news editor, and many more. Buy your tickets now at www.warwickcongress.com/tickets.
You can also enter our competition on Twitter, on Instagram, or on Facebook using the hashtag WalkOn18Comp and answer the following question. What do you think is the most innovative trend in the world right now, and why? The best answer will win a free ticket to the conference in February, and entries start on January the 8th, so get yours in quickly. Becoming a member of Warwick Congress has never been easier. With exclusive interviews, articles, and careers events for our members, don't miss out on the benefits that Warwick Congress membership can provide. Sign up now at www.warwickcongress.com. You've been listening to Warwick Congress Weekly, and we're taking a break for Christmas, but we'll be back in January.